We will call the meeting for the Metropolitan Planning Transit Authority's Planning and Capital Project Delivery Committee. I'm getting better at saying the name. So thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Calling the meeting to order. We'll begin by introducing all of our members. I am Alicia Stedman, Chair of the committee. We'll start over here with Brent Cagle.
Good afternoon, Brent Cagle, Interim CEO, CATS.
Andy Mock, Senior Project Manager for the Link Silver Line Project.
Bruce Jones, Service Planning Manager, CATS.
Brian Adelmi, Senior Project Manager for the Red Line.
Kelly Goforth, Chief Development Officer for CATS.
Kathy Cornett, planning staff.
Bob Menzel, trustee.
Jeff Robbins, trustee.
Lucia Sabata, trustee.
Dana Stujanki, trustee.
Clayton Seeley, trustee.
Katrina Young, trustee. Jocelyn Jones Nolly, trustee.
Deborah Campbell, transition co-director.
Brad Thomas, CATS General Counsel.
On the wall.
Monica Drayton, citizen. Karen Sullivan, North End advocate.
Tyler Joe, on Southern Development. Brandon Briggs, consultant. And Mark Director.
You had to bring it home, huh? Thank you for that. So I want to state our ethics statements. You guys typically hear this at our board meetings, our broader board meetings, but we'll start to talk about it and use it in our meetings as well. I want to remind you that this is the duty, it is the duty of every board member to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. To comply with this statement, I ask whether any board member has a known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before the board today. If so, please identify the conflict or appearance of conflict at this time or when the item appears on the agenda for consideration, and refrain from any undue participation in the particular matter involved by leaving the meeting room until the item is complete.
Madam Chair, my firm has, we own an undeveloped piece of property within the half-mile radius of the Cornelius downtown station.
Mhm.
And so to the extent that that is specifically discussed, I wanted to disclose that.
Madam Chair, I would like to disclose a potential appearance of conflict of interest regarding the positioning of the Davidson Station. Property owned by members of my family is located within the half-mile walk shed of the preferred Davidson Station location. Out of an abundance of caution, I move to recuse myself from consideration of the station locations along the locally preferred alternatives. We are considering adoption of today.
And I also would like to disclose an appearance of conflict of interest with respect to the potential Camp North End station. I live within a half mile of the proposed station, and I wanted, out of abundance of caution, I want to make sure that I share that with the board. So I would like, I don't know if we do, I'm going to turn it over to the legal team at this point. Do I do separate motions or one motion for together or separate motions for each recusal? Because these are the same and mine is different.
Yeah.
Okay,
One.
okay.
And so if someone can to recuse, and why don't we, Elisa, why don't we start with you, make the motion to recuse, and then we need a second. And that would be specifically for the item regarding North End.
So I'll make a motion that trustee Stedman is recuses herself for the Camp, no, not, yeah, Camp North End Station item.
Second.
It's been, moved and seconded. Do we have, let's vote. Any discussion?
Clarification question for council. To the extent that each of these individual issues is related to the overarching vote on the total station locations, how does that play into this? As long as we're not participating related to the specific station.
Yeah, so I'll take a crack at how I think we're looking at this, and I'll let James weigh in. But I believe that we want to try to narrow the conflict, the interpretation of conflict as much as we can. And so to the extent that that conflict is related to that particular station, we would narrow your refusal to that particular station based on the property interest. But you would be able to vote on the other matters associated with the project.
And to the extent there's a matter that includes all of the stations, should there, are we, see what I'm saying is like,
So if there is a conflict that relates to all of the stations, then I think that, we would recommend that you would recuse that.
and I'm not, sorry, I'm not making myself clear. So each one of these individual stations is part of a 10 to 12 station line, correct? So to the extent that we're being asked to provide opinions, counsel, or votes related to the whole thing, even if it's just the conflict is related to just one, that's my clarification.
Yeah,
So for today, what we would recommend is that the committee consider the historic LPA, which is 10 stations, as a package. That's been presented in the board packet and board materials as a single item. It's also been presented with Camp North End. And we think it makes the most sense to segregate out the 10 stations that have been part of the historic LPA and treat those as one item. Camp North End as a second item, and any additional stations as individual items as well, because they would be new stations, as opposed to the historic LPA. That would just be for today, though, to Brad's point, and this is a little bit of an evolving process. To Brad's point, the underlying principle here is that we will try to narrow the scope of a recusal for any trustee. So to kind of preview it at a board meeting where there would be action taken on any of the stations, we would anticipate breaking the votes up to be individual stations as necessary to make sure that we are limiting the scope of the recusal. For today, it would be, if Clayton is recused with respect to the Davidson station, that would be the recusal for the whole historical LPA because it's being considered as one item solely as a kind of matter of convenience.
Thanks.
So
Any other questions?
You got one?
Bob Menzel. A little concern is it's kind of a pretty vague standard that we're laying out here. Our chair is a half a mile from the station. What if you're 3/4 of a mile from the station or a mile from the station? Exactly where does the distance metric come into play where you need to declare a conflict?
So this is a non-legal response to that and why I'm doing it. So I think there's a distinctive difference between an actual conflict and an appearance of conflict. I raised the question about the appearance of conflict because of my professional ethics, right? And so I asked them, what should I do? And they said there's no actual conflict, but there is an appearance of a conflict that an abundance of caution, let's lay it out and deal with it. Now, how detailed we go with revising our policy, I think the legal team will provide some guidance on that, or response to that piece.
That's right. Historically, we've avoided the bright line test of saying if you're within 0.6, it's a conflict, but if you're within 0.7, it's not. To allow instead the trustees who are being presented the question to decide on a case-by-case basis whether the facts and circumstances are appearance of a conflict that warrants recusal. And that's why there's a motion in front of the committee, or there will be, right now there is a motion with respect to recusing Alicia, right? So this is a vote solely with respect to recusing the chair from consideration of the Camp North End Station today. It's not a vote on whether every home ownership within a half a mile of a proposed station is a de facto recusal, right? So I see where you're coming from, Bob, and in the future, if you think that you have an appearance of a conflict of interest, we would follow the same process. To the contrary, if you don't think that you have an appearance of conflict of interest and would like to present it for confirmation, we talked about that when we were adopting the conflict of interest policy, and that would also be part of the process. We would anticipate that being part of the process as well.
I would also add too, it could be, based upon the nature of the interest as well. So not just, all of these specific facts will be part of that evaluation, not necessarily exactly how far it is from the station, but there could be other factors that
Sure.
give rise to it. So that's why we want to reserve a case by case basis for each of those. And to the extent that we can share that information sooner rather than later, it just helps, for purposes of making the meeting run smoothly.
So just one more follow-up and I'll quit. What is the distinction between a conflict and an appearance of conflict?
So those are, I know we have a definition of conflict of interest. We have a definition of all of those in the code of ethics. And so,
So while Brad's pulling it up, definitionally, they are different. I think you're probably asking about the effect.
Yes.
In terms of recusal, there is no difference. In terms of consideration of a matter, whether you have a conflict of interest or an appearance of a conflict of interest, either one can be grounds for recusal.
Thank you.
that definition is under code of ethics under 2A. So.
Lucia, you had a question.
Not really. The
Okay,
question was-
okay.
I'm fine.
All right, so we had a motion, discussion, time to vote. On the motion for me to be recused from the Camp North End discussion. All in favor? Say aye. Any opposed, opposition? Same sign?
That's just my, I think you're fine. I'll go with it.
Okay, all right. Can I get a motion for Clayton?
So move.
Second.
All right, been moved and properly second for Clayton to recuse himself from the vote on the LPA alignment. All in favor? Opposed, same sign? All right, that's adopted. And can I get a motion for Wyatt to recuse himself from the LPA station vote? I'll make a motion. Improve, motion and properly second for Wyatt to remove himself from the LPA vote. In discussion, can I get all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that carries. All right, oh Jesus.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that.
That's the first time we had to do it, guys, so it was a little clunky. So I want to say that we're trying to figure out this policy thing, but I think what I will say is in the spirit of transparency, and the community deserves to know how we're moving and if we have an interest beyond what we're here charged to do. So
Just one quick question,
Okay.
Chair. As I understood the recusal, it's just affecting the north end. And I thought I heard James say that when it comes to Wyatt, it's the entire line.
it's two. Mine is Camp North End and theirs is from the 11th station for the entire line.
Okay,
And
The
the actions and the further on in the meeting will be for those two.
okay. So there's a different standard for the recusals. Okay,
Particular trustee will exit the room for that discussion, and then they can come back to the room when the discussion, that item has been considered.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I don't believe there are different standards for the recusals. The recusals apply to two different items. The standards are the same.
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
Whew, all right, let's go. Public comment. Public comment is the time during the meeting that members of the public are welcome to speak to the committee. This is the community's opportunity to voice concerns, opinions, and suggestions directly to the committee. To ensure we can complete our meeting, The committee members will not engage in dialogue with the speaker. Rather, the period is designed for the committee to listen to the community and gather information. The public comment period will follow the procedure provided for public address to the board in the board rules and operating procedures, except that the public comment session shall be no more than 10 minutes long, and speakers are limited to no more than 2 minutes each. Individuals cannot yield their time. During public comment, the chair will call the names of those signed up to speak. Names will be called in the order in which they were received. When your name is called, go to the podium and state your name and subject matter. If a name is called and that individual is absent, the chair will proceed to the next name on the list. Individuals who are absent when their name is called will be moved from the bottom of the list and may speak if time permits. All comments shall be made to the full committee, not to an individual board member. The committee does not take action on public comment, but may refer the matter to staff for follow-up. Members of the public may also submit comments to the committee at any time in writing. So first we have 4 speakers signed up, and if anyone that would like to speak has not signed up, you can do so now with our clerk. And no takers. So we'll start with Mr. Shannon Benz. You, sir, have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Is this on? Yes. Good afternoon again. My name is Shannon Benz. I'm the executive director of Sustain Charlotte, a local nonprofit. I want to comment on 2 of your agenda items today. First, regarding the Silver Line Value Engineering Study, we appreciate the effort to identify cost savings. However, we encourage you to distinguish between efficiencies that preserve the project's long-term value and cuts that simply defer costs to the future. We support consolidating the First Ward and 11th Street stations because they're so close together, but we do not support eliminating stations, including Remount and the Iron District stations, or relocating the Bojangles Coliseum station for relatively modest savings. Transit doesn't simply serve great places, it helps create them. The stations we build today will shape where people live, work, and invest for generations. Charlotte has already learned through the Blue Line that cutting stations to save money often means paying much more to build them later. Second item of yours today regarding better bus stops. We encourage you to raise the minimum standard. Replacing dirt with concrete is certainly an improvement, but a bus stop should provide more than a place to stand. Every improved bus stop should include, at a minimum, a bench, and where feasible, shade or shelter. The quality of the wait is part of the quality of the trip. We want people to choose transit. We need to make waiting for the bus safe, comfortable, and dignified, especially for older adults, people with disabilities, anyone waiting on a hot summer afternoon or in the rain. Voters approved this investment because they believe transit should be a convenient, comfortable, and attractive choice. Decisions you make now will shape the system for decades. Let's build a transit network that future generations will thank us for, not one they'll have to spend decades correcting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Eric Savrell. Correct me if I did it wrong. I apologize. And I've been knowing you for years. And I've been listening for years.
That's right. The mayor also mispronounced my name for a decade, so it's very. I think she finally got it before she retired. So yes. Good afternoon, committee. My name is Eric Zaverl. On behalf also with Sustain Charlotte, and I'm here to urge both recommendation that you of both the Camp North End and the Graham Craig's Head stations as part of the Red Line locally preferred alignment. The case for the Craig's Head station isn't just based on who lives there today. It's based on the community we're trying to build tomorrow. This area became industrial because it developed around a freight line. Once that corridor becomes a passenger line, the economics will change. A station creates a value. It attracts investment, housing, jobs, and mixed-use development. The city already knows allows transit-oriented development around stations, And the station doesn't simply respond to land use, it helps shapes it. So without that station, nearby neighbors will just simply watch the train pass by through the community, and they will miss out on mobility and the economic development benefits that the Red Line can bring. I also encourage you to learn from the history of the Blue Line. More than 20 years ago, decisions were made to eliminate stations, connections, and shorten the Blue Line to save money. Today, we're spending more money and creating far more disruption to add back stations and extensions that in hindsight should have been built in the beginning. Let's not repeat this mistake. We have one opportunity to build this corridor right. And if there's a reasonable path to including Graham Craig's Head Station today, I believe future generations of Charlotteans will thank you for making that investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Next, we have Karen Sullivan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak to you today on behalf of the North End community. Charlotte aspires to be a world-class city that is recognized for vibrant neighborhoods and a rich history and culture. It's a beautiful vision, but that vision cannot be realized unless decision makers are committed to distributing opportunity equally. Today, you have an opportunity to uphold that commitment. We ask that you include the West Craighead Station in the LPA so that everyone can have an opportunity to thrive in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Monifa Drayton.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I stand before you today to ask that you include a station at the West Craighead, even if you decide to move forward with the proposed Camp North End plan. It is absolutely infuriating that underserved communities have to consistently beg for the basics when other communities don't even have to ask. This is not an either or decision because the 2040 plan in the UDO has already given you direction on equity and transportation equity. This is not an either or decision. Camp North End is where I live. I live across the street and it is a destination place. It is a place where people come to have a good time. It has been the place of teen takeovers. It has been the place for movies. That is a destination place. For decades, Derrida is a place where you have residents and you have manufacturing. It has been said that people don't live there. That is untrue. I know that it is untrue because I laced up my sneakers and I went door to door and I talked to the neighbors. I also stood at the bus stop where the residents, the workers, the employees who live in that area who work at those manufacturing companies where they work. I stood there on the bus stop. I spoke to them. I went door to door. For those who know me, know I have no problem going door to door to get what I need and to ask questions. So it is not true that residents don't live there. And it is also true that people need that stop and people work in that area. So the difference is for decades, Derrida has been one of the most historically underserved communities in Mecklenburg County. The average salary for that area is less than $43,000, which is grossly lower than the rest of the county. Many residents rely on public transportation to reach manufacturing, jobs, healthcare, education, and other essential services. This should not be an either or decision. This is a basic need. If we want to take it seriously that we want to move forward with economic mobility, we have to be serious about that. This opportunity will provide economic mobility for the residents that live there. We must stop thinking of the train as just going into Uptown Charlotte. I know I hear the beep, I'm going to close. But this is also an opportunity for them to work up north. Atrium Health is, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I can be at the slow down. Thank you, Monique, for
You just gonna keep going. Ooh, that's so you. All right, I want to thank everyone for sharing their thoughts and their time. We'll move on through the rest of the agenda. Next, we have the report of the chair. I don't have a lot to report on, although we've been meeting a lot and definitely reaching and accomplishing a lot of the payback requirements. I am happy to report, if you haven't heard or hadn't like actually heard us jumping up and down, that we have met every requirement of the PAVE Act, the first gate, which is July 1. I just want to pause and let everyone congratulate themselves and staff and everyone that touched the work on making sure that this happened. It was not easy, but our work isn't done, so we're off to the next gate. And so we have some things to do by January, per the PAVE Act, as well as continue to do the work that is upon the organization. The second thing that I wanted to talk about, and Amani, our Harvard fellow, has been helping me think this through, along with David, creating two bodies of work that I think we're needing, and that is a Transit 101. I know we've gotten presentations about transit, and we've been trying to absorb it as we go, kind of building the plane as we fly. But I think we need to create kind of a structured curriculum, just not for ourselves, but folks that will join this committee in the future. So we've been thinking about what that looks like, and also thinking about an outward-facing transit academy. Every mode in the community has one already. I know that the airport has one. I'm sure CATS has done something like that, maybe a more short time frame style, like a boot camp or so. The planning department has one. There's a civic leadership academy. So the model's there and the need is always there. People want to learn more about what we do and how they can participate. So we've been thinking about that. Nothing in stone. I just wanted to introduce that to the group today. And so moving forward, we will be working closely with staff on what that might look like, and who kind of advances that type of work, as if we don't have enough to do. We have some consultants, I think, that can help us advance it, but it's another way to educate ourselves, educate the community, and how we can all kind of move on one accord in advancing our goals around transit in the community. All right. Any questions or discussion about that? The next, we have our staff report, and I'll yield to Kelly to provide an update on a few items.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a quick update today. We've got three substantive agenda items today, so we're going to leave plenty of time for that. Just really quickly, in your packet, I just wanted to point out to you, right immediately following the agenda is upcoming agenda items. And so that was included in your work plan. Just wanted to point that out. We'll be updating that every month for you all, because that will be changing as there are changes in items that are ready to come, or maybe we'll need to add something new. So we want to give you that look ahead every month, so you know what's coming. A couple other quick updates on our bus service plan. Last month, we approved, the committee considered the FY27 service changes. That's going to the board tonight. We noted in that presentation that there was a upcoming public engagement on the Route 23 with the proposed changes in the routing. Wanted to let you know that engagement, that public meeting occurred. There were a few community members that participated in that, and there was no objection or concerns with that change. So we will be moving forward with that if approved by the board tonight. Just wanted to share that update. And finally, I believe the board all receives communication on a drainage project that CATS is currently implementing along the Blue Line near the Scaly Bark Station. That does have some minor implications to our service. So we'll be single tracking through the area, but also will result in some road closures on South Boulevard. So just wanted to point that out to you. If you haven't seen that, you should have that in your email inbox, and there'll be widely communicated out to riders and the traveling public about that as well. But certainly let me know if you have any questions about that. And that concludes.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. I have a question. Do these updates go to the full board or just our committee in terms of the updates, the road closures, the route changes?
The information on the project went to the full board.
Okay, yes. Just want to make sure the operations committees has this information about
That's
the road
correct.
closures,
Yes.
route changes. Okay, thank you. So next item on the agenda is the business items. The first we have the Red Line LPA update, and I'll turn it over to staff to give us an update presentation, and then we'll consider action.
Great. Thank you very much. As you all know, we are have some proposed refinements to the Red Line locally preferred alternative. As we're pulling up the presentation here, we presented at your last meeting the evaluation of the proposed new station locations. We've heard from community members that have voiced some comments on those preliminary recommendations. So we have some information to share today on the proposed recommendations and recommended action on this. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Nadolny, the Senior Project Manager for the Red Line.
Thank you. We think we got it. Let's see if my clicker doesn't work. Oh, it does now. Great. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Just as a reminder, last month we brought this for a discussion item, and today we are bringing it back for action. The purpose is to adopt a updated locally preferred alternative, looking at the existing stations and the locations identified in the last phase of the project, with recommendations to include that refined LPA. Some of these slides are the same you've seen, so if I go quickly on a few of them, feel free to slow me down if you have any questions. But the original locally preferred alternative was adopted by the MTC in 2008, and it was a 25-mile commuter rail line. There are 10 stations on the original line. You notice, out of all of them, there is Dorida that was brought up from one of the citizens. We did speak with the citizens of Dorida back then, and included Dorida as a station as part of the original plan. Just want to again emphasize that commuter rail and light rail are two very different modes of transportation. We don't have commuter rail in the South, pretty much, so the major difference is light rail tends to be shorter distances in urban settings, and commuter rail is longer, kind of suburban style train sets. And as far as commuter rail goes, the headways tend to be about a half hour to an hour. Light rail tends to be 10 to 20 minutes. The station spacing, this is a general kind of statement, is that stations tend to be about 2 to 5 miles apart, where light rail tends to be around a mile apart between stations. So talking about the other commuter rails around the country, this chart shows all the commuter rails that are less than 100 route miles. So this doesn't include New York and Chicago and Boston. They're kind of different animals that they're over 100 years old. And this shows you the route miles and the number of stations. So the final column shows the average miles between the stations. And again, that average 2 to 5, I mean, that can vary, but this is kind of the aggregate of all of the stations. And the blue rows at the bottom. So our existing line is 2.38 miles between stations. It's actually already the commuter rail system that has the most stations per route mile. By adding a station, then it gets even, less as far as spacing between miles. And then if we add 2, it's again less. So during the 15% design phase, we identified all the station locations that were originally included in the LPA, and we reevaluated them, made sure that they still made sense. We worked with all the towns and the cities. Yeah, we had a lot of public meetings. We had 2 rounds of public meetings where we went out to the public. We had neighborhood meetings, key employee workshops. And what we recommend is confirming that the existing 10 stations, with the fine tuning that we've had, we kind of shown this at the board meeting on February 20th, that a couple stations were mostly just tweaking the location based on development that happened that, you know, where the parking was proposed in the past can no longer happen. So we're finding additional spaces for those stations. And I have those slides as an appendix, and it's in your packet. So if you want to talk about any of those 10 stations, we can do that as well. And then during the design, we also heard some interest in other stations. There were 2 stations proposed in the north inner planning area. So what you see outlined in green is in the planning's north inner planning area. And the Camp North End station was not in the original LPA, but was endorsed by the neighborhood surrounding Camp North End, the developer, and the northern towns as employment and entertainment destinations, as we heard tonight. And Craighead, which was not in the original LPA, is proposed by members of the Sugar Creek and Hidden Valley community as a redevelopment opportunity. We also, since we met, we've heard additional comments at PTAC in May. Citizens spoke and had a handout talking about the revitalization of North End of Charlotte. And then after the June 11th PTAC meeting, 2 members also had additional comments. Looking at the land use at Camp North End, this is kind of the breakdown of the half-mile radius. You can see that a lot of the center is a community activity center, also a lot of commercial campus. Neighborhood 2 is more multifamily, higher density, and innovation mixed use throughout the area. And just some pictures of what Camp North End has become. This is not what it looked like in 2008, which is, you know, so it's definitely changed a lot. As far as the Graham and Craighead area, this is where the station is proposed. The land use you see is 100% manufacturing and logistics within the half-mile radius. The proposed station, just getting an aerial of it. We were also asked to have additional pictures. So this is looking north on Graham Street, looking south on Graham Street at where the station would be, and then looking east on Craighead Road.
Could you go back to slides where that picture that shows the area kind of the next one? Please. Are all those parking lots for those jobs around, for those businesses around, right? Those are parking areas?
They're
Mostly stores.
stores or salvage company or salvage junkyard type of businesses. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, an auto salvage yard.
And the idea is to keep it that way? Is that what we're saying by the plan? Not the redevelopment, right?
Community area plan supports it.
Existing business.
Thank you.
Again, we showed these slides last month, but just to quickly go over it, the existing land use, we saw the breakdown of the different land uses at Camp North End. Again, Craighead with its manufacturing and logistics place type. As far as density goes, the Camp North End area is the densest corridor out of all the stations throughout the corridor. As far as affordable housing goes, there's a high percentage of affordable multifamily in the Camp North End area, and it also has the highest percentage of rental assisted units in the corridor. And then proximity to neighborhoods within that half-mile radius are the neighborhoods of Greenville, Genesis Park, and Parks at Oaklawn, Druid Hills, Graham Heights, and Tryon Hills, and Lockwood. And again, within that half-mile radius, there's no neighborhoods that touch the half-mile for Craighead. Future land use, Camp North End is, the station is consistent with the City of Charlotte's policy map with mixed-use transit supportive. Craighead is not currently supported by the policy map, and the future land use is not transit supportive.
Quick comment or question. When was the last, when was that policy adopted? When was the policy adopted?
Kathy, you want to?
So, just for the context for everyone, Charlotte's comprehensive plan, which is our overarching document, we have a planning framework that's laid out in our comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2021.
Okay.
The policy map was the first implementation item from the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan set the place types, policy map mapped them in March of 2022. And then we've just finished a 2-year effort to develop 14 community area plans that bring the goals of the comprehensive plan down to the community level. And that work was completed and adopted by council in April of this year.
So April of this year, this was
Yeah.
policy. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And some additional factors as far as schedule goes. We've been hearing about Camp North End before we started the study. It was talked about in the initial meetings, so we included it in the design update, and we included the cost in the operating model. For Craighead, we heard about the Craighead station towards the end of the design process, so it's not currently considered in the operating planning model. The cost, the cost of Camp North End is currently in the cost estimate. Craighead, for the platform canopy and station components, you're talking about a $5 to $6 million cost. However, we don't know. We'd have to do a new operational plan to see if the passing sidings are in the right place for the changes in station spacing, and that might be additional cost, but that's unclear.
I have a question. Even though the cost for Camp North End is included, what is the cost of that?
It's about that same.
About the same, $5
yeah.
to $6 million. So it's the same thing.
Yeah. Yes.
If you eliminated, we have 2 northern sites, right? Hambright, and what's the other one? That's just right.
Yes.
Okay, excuse me, right? So if you eliminated one of those and added Craighead, is there an additional cost?
Well, the elimination of one of those would save the money for the station cost. And they also I have park and ride components, so that would be a savings. As far as the operational components, since they're spread out, we would still have to redo the operational analysis because the trains would pass in different points. So it's unclear of whether the costs would be neutral.
The magnitude of that effort, rescoping.
Start from scratch.
Yeah, so we have our consultant would look at how the trains intersect with each other, where the passing sidings go. It was a pretty substantial effort in the last phase. Now that effort's been done, so they can take that and modify it. So it's unclear how long that would take, but it would be an effort. And then if it was determined that the siding had to be in a different location, then we'd have to design that. And we have lots of pictures of the corridor, which is one track, and there's a lot of homes and roads nearby. And we were trying to be also as strategic as possible to put the passing sidings where there was space. And so if we hit different areas where there wasn't any space, that could mean, we need to have some encroachments in that removed too.
Can we be clear about, or answer the question around, it's not a matter of just deleting one, shifting one. If we modify the LPA, there are other things that will have to be done. The environmental piece, like just talk a little bit about the total impacts of modifying an existing and adopted LPA.
And that will apply for both stations, for Northern and Craighead, right? Because the same studies have to be done.
No, the LPA we're talking about is separate. The additional station is one thing. The thing that's been adopted.
Beyond the cost, so the original 10 stations, right? Let's break this down into the original 10 stations versus North End and Craighead. Those original 10 stations have been on the LPA for decades. And so the other thing that if you were to remove those stations that will also be in, whether it's Huntersville or the Eastfield area, they have been planning and developed their plans for those station areas, for those communities around those, right? And so while that may not have a monetary impact, it certainly would have an impact on those areas and their planning processes with the city of Charlotte or the town of Huntersville in the case of Hambright. And so there may not be, whether or not it's a cost equal, right? To take away one station to add another. There are also other impacts both to the planning on the route and the siting, but there are also community area planning that has been conducted and anticipated for literally decades.
What about the environmental piece? Is there any impact to any environmental work that's been done? NEPA work?
It's still upcoming.
Okay.
Yeah, the NEPA is not started yet.
Okay.
To be able to start NEPA, we have to answer these kinds of questions, right?
Okay.
You have to have an LPA, so
Okay.
that you can then do the NEPA.
Okay.
So can I ask when were we able to add the study that you mentioned for the North End station? When did that start?
For the operational analysis,
For the
Oh.
recommendation of the North End, there was a study just recent, right? That started just recently, or has that been all along?
I think that the comment that Brian was referring to with the Camp North End station is that it was suggested early on during the 15% design process. And so due to public input in our initial analysis, we felt it likely that that was going to be a potential additional station. So we included it in the 15% design and in the operations analysis that was undertaken as part of the 15% design, and with the coordination with Norfolk Southern as we went through the acquisition of the O line. They also reviewed that proposed.
When was that?
I was gonna say, what date was that?
That was in 2023, 24.
yeah, the first round of public meetings were in spring of 24. I will say, like, we have heard about Camp North End for years and years before that. People,
24,
yeah.
But it actually became, because I saw one chart, we started actually in 25. 24, there were some meetings, in 25, it became part of the actual.
It hasn't been adopted yet. That's part of this process today.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I guess sort of backing up 23, 24, as it became possible, right? Within the realm of possibility that the red line, that the transit system plan could be funded, we knew that we were working through with Norfolk Southern the purchase in stations, number of stations, frequencies, all of those things matter as we were developing that deal with Norfolk Southern to purchase the land and then have the comprehensive rail agreement. And so North End was never identified as a station in the original because, as Brian said, North End was undeveloped, that there wasn't a North End there. But today in 2023, it's apparent to anyone who goes into that area, us included, that North End had significantly changed. And so it was simply staff trying to be proactive and we had heard from the community so it was simply the staff were trying to be proactive so as not to get to this point and then have missed that and need to go back.
So I have a question. I know Wyatt and Katrina have this. Katrina?
Start expecting this year. Are we gonna do our questions now or are we gonna?
Yeah, we can let her finish. Thank you, Katrina. Can we finish and then we'll hold a discussion during the vote? All right, let's go.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
At the last month's meeting, we heard questions about the population and employees that are within the half mile of the station. So these are the numbers. So population, Camp North End has 1,300 and Craighead is pretty much like, as you can see from the map, it doesn't have the. And then when it comes to businesses, Craighead has 44 businesses, Camp North End 180, and then you can see the total employees. within that time. Now, we also heard asking about what about a mile? What about 2 miles? What we just wanted to point out is that FTA looks at that half-mile radius. Now, when it comes to ridership, everyone is considered as far as, it's a model that bases other modes of transportation, the bus network, personal cars, everything, and basically divvies up based on what makes the most sense, basically assigns riders to different modes. But when it comes to walkability and TOD development, FTA really looks at that half-mile radius. There's something called the distance decay relationship, which basically says the likelihood of someone walking declines rapidly as distance increases. So when you look, if you're a quarter mile from the station, people that say they're willing to walk is about 70-85%. A half mile, it's 30 to 45%. And as you get further away, some people will walk, but that percentage decreases drastically.
Write it down. Because he might answer it.
The other thing to note is existing transit service. So here we're showing the blue line and the half-mile radius around the blue line stations. I have the red line and the half mile around the 2 stations proposed. And you also see all those other blue lines and the little blue dots. That's the underlying bus network. So this area has a lot of transit service today. As far as the future transit service, everything you see in green is proposed in the better bus network to have 15-minute or better headways. And then also everything you see in yellow are proposed future microtransit zones. So with that, staff recommendations is to confirm those existing 10 stations with that fine tuning of the locations based on those recent developments, adding the Camp North End station to the LPA. So we have heard comments from the community. Some of the comments that there's a 6-mile gap between Uptown and the Derrida stations. And again, just noting that this commuter rail is a very different operational characteristic than light rail, generally emphasizing those long distance trips between suburban areas and major employment centers, where light rail is more for those local inner urban areas. And adding a Camp North End station does address this spacing that won't be 6 miles anymore. Environmental justice and community area plan goals. The proposed Craighead station is not currently supported in the policy map, and the future land use is not transit supportive. There's the industrial corridors and opportunities jobs report that was completed in December of 21, and it identified this area as a well-positioned for logistics due to its proximity to the interstate and all the adjacent land uses. And based on the current state law, the city of Charlotte cannot rezone property without property owners' consent. Another comment was ridership potentially is underestimated, and the station area currently has no residential population within that half-mile radius and low employment density, resulting in limited walkability and ridership potential. And then North End is underserved with transit. The North Inner Planning area currently has a strong transit presence, which will be further enhanced with the planned improvements with the better bus network and the expansion of microtransit. And the Red Line transit access will, for nearby residents, can be provided through a feeder bus network and parking facilities at the Derrida station. We've been hearing about the Hidden Valley area, and actually a feeder bus to Derrida is comparable to a feeder bus to Craighead. Another important thing to note is that the assumption is that we're going to get 50% federal funding for this project. That was in the model. In order to do that, we have to enter the FTA's New Starts process, and they basically have 6 criterias that they rate you on for project justification. And you need basically a medium rating averaged of the 6. So they basically have low, medium, high. They rate each one of these, and you get one of those values, and the aggregate of them has to be a medium, or else you're not considered. And again, for land use, you can see there, the land use is only based on existing population density and total employment within the half mile. And affordable housing and at-risk populations within a half mile. So they won't let you include anything outside of that. So adding a station that does not have transit supportive land uses and low potential for ridership could negatively impact the project rating. So the North Inner Planning Area is recommended to receive one of the 2 recommended new commuter rail stations. If future land use and development patterns continue to change, CATS can always reevaluate the need for a Craighead station as part of a future service expansion. CATS could evaluate opportunities to expand the existing underlying microtransit proposed zones to improve first and last mile connections. And a bus rail integration service plan will be developed as part of the upcoming design, and that's going to look at the feeder bus network and throughout the whole network and develop a feeder bus service. Some of the impacts to adding a Craighead station is, as far as schedule, the project schedule would be affected as the addition of that station would require that new operational analysis that I talked about and the potential changes to the passing sidings. Also, it's important to note that if a new operational analysis would trigger a review from Norfolk Southern as far as coordination goes. Cost, we mentioned that the $5 to $6 million for the station platform, but also could increase potentially substantially depending on the results of that operational analysis. And then the MPTA evaluation, because Craighead demonstrates low ridership potential and limited TOD potential, could negatively affect the project's overall MPTA evaluation and rating. So where we stand in the decision timeline, we met with you last month, June 10th. The same presentation was given to PTAC the next day. We're currently in the bold there where we're suggesting action to recommend to the executive committee. The executive committee meets on July 22nd, and then there's this is the proposed schedule that can be modified as you guys see. With that, the proposed actions of, I don't know,
Okay.
if we bring it back to the chair.
All right, to keep things above board, we're gonna move with the first motion and bifurcate our actions and discussions so we can organize how we talk about it and make sure the folks who can talk about it and vote on it are in the room and so forth. So the first motion will be, can I get a motion to recommend adoption of the station refinements to the existing LPA for the Lynx Red Line?
I'll make that motion.
Not yet, hold up. You can't vote or second it, but it's cool.
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second? We need now? Okay, that's,
But I've got questions related to the presentation.
I was just speaking to the motion that I thought
Yeah.
was coming.
Okay.
okay, all right. So go ahead, Wyatt.
So this is a question to council, and this is something that obviously is a new board and new body. One of the things that everybody is, I believe, come onto this with an intent to really being all into serving the community here in our metropolitan area. And one of the things that I continually think about is our focus on the mission. And I'm wondering if they're just to remind the board and also the public, if we could get some commentary on where land use decisions fall in the purview of the MPTA.
So one of the provisions that's in the primary interlocal agreement that we recently entered into with the city of Charlotte is during phase 2, the MPTA and the city planning, the city will align on some guiding principles as to the respective responsibilities. And it sets forth clearly that the MPTA is a transit agency and that the city of Charlotte is in charge of planning. But we understand that there will need to be coordination, of course. I don't want to get out in front of saying what those agreed guidelines might end up being several months from now. But I will say, that the PILA does recite that the MPTA is in charge of transit and as the city planning department is in charge of planning.
I mean, I think,
AVAC
I think
is
simply,
our charter essentially. So
And the distinction is land use planning, the city is sharp.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
the city or the towns in which the stations fall.
and the reason I bring that up is because I think it's really important for us to focus on because these are some really important questions to consider about, the new station locations and things like that. But it's incredibly important that we stay in our lane in terms of what we are charged with doing. And as an example, relative to the presentation talking about Camp North End, I am curious when that discussion began to occur and we started to study that. How much of that was done prior to the city of Charlotte's land use plan supporting transit-oriented development in that location?
I laugh because I partially know the answer, but I'm going to defer to Kathy to answer that one. It's 2010, 2009 with the ULI study. Yep.
So that answer is none. Is that right? Effectively, other than just maybe dots on a map, but in terms of actually any planning and things like that, we, as a body, CATS did not really work into it until the city of Charlotte said, hey, planning and our land use, and this goes back to who's sort of setting the table, right?
Right. The land use plan came first.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another piece of that, and Kathy may have the date, and it's going to be one of my questions. When was the Camp North End station, the Camp North End development rezoned, which solidified kind of 2017? Of course you would know. 2017. So that's well before all of this too.
And I'm just to finish my stream here. Regardless of our personal opinions about where a station should be and shouldn't be and things like that, there's a part of that has to be extricated to focus on what we're actually being asked to do. And I worry about setting a precedent where in any situation, not just Craig, but any situation, that we would adopt something or recommend something that goes counter to the planning authority of the town of Matthews or the planning authority for Cornelius or the planning authority for the city of Charlotte, because that in itself is a public process. And so, this is more of a philosophical kind of question, but I think it's very important because there's a lot of community heartfelt and valid thoughts about all this, and we need to just be careful.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Katrina has a question, a broader question on the presentation.
Question that I wanted to share before, for the trustees had to leave the room as it relates to the Craighead station. And I've heard the appeal, I've heard the comments, and honestly, I am supportive. And the reason I support is if we look at what has happened with North, that was not on your radar, but look what has happened. And because of that, we now feel the need for that station. What is to say that it's not the exact same thing for Craighead? It's not on the radar, but it certainly could be. And it would be a benefit because when we're looking again at commuter rail, which is different from light rail, you're looking to connect neighborhoods to opportunities, but you're also able to create destinations. So this could end up being not only TLD, it could be a destination like Camp North End. It could have hotels. It could be all of that. And I agree with White, that's not our role to plan that, but it is our role to provide the opportunity at the least amount of money. So it's not a good thing to come back 10 years later to say, oh yeah, we need to now put a station there when we have the opportunity to do it now. And while it may prolong something,
Going back to the motion.
I think the benefit is there. It's manufacturing now.
Everybody got a question. Hold up.
Always.
All right, so we're gonna go back to the motion. Stick to the way we want to organize the conversation specifically to those areas.
So we're gonna vote on the package, basically.
Yes, the existing LPA, then we'll come back and do the others.
All right.
All connected. And you don't want to vote on one without actually having the opportunity to hear the rationale of what some people are thinking.
Exactly.
Before it gets to them.
Just a point of clarification. Bob Menzel, I'm sorry. My understanding that there is a pretty significant distinction between land use and zoning. Municipalities and towns often zone contrary to what the land use plan is. It's called conditional zoning. So just because there's a land use plan in place, I don't think necessarily obligates either the town or the city to make a decision based on zoning that ends up going into that location. And that's a very important distinction. I see these CZs up where I live up at the lake done all the time that are contrary to the land use plan. So I just wanted to put that on the table for everybody to understand. It's not like you do a land use plan and it never changes. It's in granite. That's it, and it can't be changed. That's zoning would apply, but not land use. Go ahead, Clayton.
All right,
The fundamental difference.
one last question. Go
Yeah, the
ahead.
fundamental difference there is based on Senate Bill 382. We cannot make the same actions that we did on the blue line, which was a wholesale TOD rezoning around that line. That manufacturing and logistics district is basically in stasis until it is rezoned parcel by parcel by development.
By the property owner.
By somebody
Yes.
That's what I
Developers,
said.
but not the municipality.
No, by the property owner.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have consent from the property owner. So when we talk about, and I'll say this and then we'll move on. When we talk about implementing this, doing the same approach that we did on the south line with any other line that we have, because we're building a system.
Mhm,
It's not
correct.
just one line, it's a system. So how we approach these stations, how we're going to approach the rest of the stations within the system, and the rationale should be consistent if we're talking about equity and equality and application of rule and procedure. And so what we did on the South Line, the city had the ability at that time to proactively rezone.
Mhm.
And that, in a lot of cases, in some people's mind, they may think that was an upzoning. But in this case, we do not have, and I mean the city, our partners, do not have the ability to do that same method. It is illegal.
Yeah.
You can't do it. Now it
Unless
is,
you get
unless
complete
there's
ownership support.
support from the owner or that Senate bill changes.
Right.
There's new legislation and we have the enabling authority again.
100%.
So we're gonna go ahead and do that vote. So the motion is to recommend adoption of the station refinements to the existing LPA for the red line. These guys have to recuse themselves. Aye. Nice to have you. Maybe somebody come back and get you. I don't know.
There are living areas that were
No, I
impacted by two.
Can I ask a fair question, just a procedural question at this point?
Is your microphone on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
Is it, is it out of order to let us know, kind of to Katrina's question earlier? Can we know what all the motions that are going to be coming before us are, or do we have to wait to hear about the next one until we act on this one? Oh, they're up.
They were done. Yeah.
Oh, they're there. Oh, okay.
Uh-huh. They're right there.
Oh, I apologize. Turn me off.
It's okay. He's so focused on what he said, it's fine. So, can I get a motion for that?
I made him.
So
I
we
mean,
have a motion,
Huh?
we have a motion for the original 10
Yes.
stations.
All right,
All right.
you gonna get a second?
Second, right?
Yeah.
Second?
Yep.
Jocelyn, second. Been moving properly second. All in favor of the refinements, the motion on the floor? Say aye.
So this motion is basically stating that we are allowing the changes,
The tweaks to the existing LBA tweaks,
which would include
not the additional station,
no,
just the tweak.
what we think max.
So he's finding in the some things shifted a little bit. I hate the word this word. I'm not supposed to say
This is
shift.
final citing of the original 10 stations. This
Those-
does not address the other.
And those, yeah. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question on that motion. So that means we are 15% design phase. Are we saying that now it's set in stone, that those 10 stations will stay where they are at the 15% design phase?
We will, that's what we're saying. Basically, any other studies, we're not involved moving them.
We will move those stations into 30% design. If they need to be adjusted in the future because something else has happened or such changes, we'd bring it back again to the board for any future adjustments.
Otherwise, the location is where the location is shown on this documentation provided. Just for those 10.
Okay. All right, we ready to vote?
Sure.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose the same sign. That motion carries unanimously within the room.
We need to
So
bring
go
back
get the two guys. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Okay, we have everyone back in the room and we're gonna entertain a motion for the second recommendation. I'm gonna be pinch hitting for our chairperson, so.
I move the second.
Okay, so trustee Menzel made the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Dixon. And so at this point, do we have any questions about Camp North End? Okay. Can I hear all of the affirmative?
Aye.
Any, any negative? So I guess, let me hear affirmative again. Do we need a roll call or not sure if everyone voted.
So this, there's a motion on the floor, so we're still in, we went to the vote before we could go into discussion. But my question was, because this is, we can't talk about the other one, so we weren't supposed to, we could not amend to add them both together.
Well, we're just, I'm gonna kick it to council.
Yeah, so there was a motion on the floor for Camp North End. It received a second. There was a call for discussion. Did not hear discussion, and then there was a vote. And so,
Only point of clarification, if I may.
It's expected to vote.
okay,
Voting yes for this station does not exclude us voting yes for the next station.
that's right.
Correct.
That's
It's
right.
just for
This
the-
is just for
right.
Camp North
Right,
End.
just Camp North
Not
End.
justification to deny the other.
Correct, it's just Camp North End.
I'm gonna vote no.
Okay, you're gonna vote no for Camp North End?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I feel like so vote is complete, it's carried, and the motion is carried. Correct?
Right, one no vote, right?
One no vote.
Yep.
Okay, you wanna get Alicia back in
Thank
the room?
James.
Okay.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion, if I may. I'd like to make a motion for us to approve the Craighead station as well.
Second.
All right. Improve, Lord, a motion to properly second to add Craighead Station. Any discussion?
I have a question about Craighead Station, and it's for my friend Bruce. So the Better Bus, enhancements for that area, what is the time frame for those?
So we're still working through the future phases. We haven't programmed those in just yet. I think probably the first wave of improvements will happen to the Route 22, which is programmed for 15-minute service, and also Route 3, which is sort of in that vicinity, also 15-minute service. Can't give you an exact date at this time. We're still evaluating just based on resources, operators, vehicles.
All of the 15-minute routes, we have already committed all of the 15 minutes routes. So the top 15 routes, these included, will be completed in no more than 5 years from this budget year. So there are 5 routes in this budget year. we have already planned in the budget to order buses. We were only able to do 5 routes in this budget year because you can only do those 5 routes because they don't require new vehicles. They just require more people. So we have already planned to order buses, and that will allow us to move it quicker. But you'll recall before the referendum, the commitment on 15-minute service and full rollout of all microtransit zones is no longer than the first 5 years of the plan.
And then the second question, for the neighborhoods that have requested the Craighead station, which is actually physically closer, the Sugar Creek Blue Line station or the proposed Craighead station?
Well,
I know
so
it would depend on the neighborhood.
again, so the circle here is that half-mile radius where there's no population, but there is some population over here. The majority, you can see these kind of denser lines, that's a lot of multifamily housing. So there's the highest population is probably right here. And then right here is the Hidden Valley neighborhood. So again, there's blue line stations that touch the Hidden Valley neighborhood. And they're, yeah, you can see where they are.
Oh, we're gonna go around the whole thing. So next, we'll just go down the line and everyone, so we won't be going back and forth. Katrina?
So I'm done.
You done? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Katrina, you have any discussion points?
I did, just one more. On
Okay.
the population chart where it showed Craig had 10, are you saying there's 10 people that live there now? 10 residences in that area currently?
So, you know, the way that the Census Bureau works is that when you draw the line, it's not, they don't have the exact homes and they know exactly the homes are there. They're census blocks. And then when you show a half-mile radius, they say, okay, it's 3% in the census block, so it might assign 3% of the population. So it's not an exact
So
science.
this may not be the correct.
Maybe
I couldn't find a home, but I mean, that's the way they work.
Within the half mile.
Yeah, for the
Within the
half,
half mile.
for the half.
Any other questions?
Good.
All right, Clayton?
All righty. Okay. So
That's all.
first of all, I see a lot of friends in the room with me today, and I want to thank you all for being here and bringing such thoughtful commentary around the West Craighead station. I truly appreciate the time, passion, and the thought that has gone through this discussion today. This isn't a decision I take lightly. I visited the area several times over the past 2 weeks. I've also ridden the Route 22 down Grand Street a number of times. I used to go to the gym down there. And I've ridden the Route 13 along Craighead as well in the past. I ride transit every day. I've been riding transit since I was 18 years old. I'm 41. It's my primary way of getting around. So the Craighead station would actually be the closest station to my house. I lived in that map that was just on there. But to me, transit is fundamentally about connecting communities to the places that matter most in people's daily lives. Rail is one mode, but it is only one of a part of a larger mobility network. I believe there's tremendous opportunity to connect this community to both the red line and the blue line without placing a station here. A relatively simple reroute of the Route 13 could provide a direct connection to Dorita Station while there's already a connection to Sugar Creek Station on the same line. You could create a circulator. Strong, frequent bus connections is a huge part of the Better Bus, and utilizing this here would be very important, as well as deploying microtransit and last mile opportunities. But we also have to recognize the policy environment we're operating within. Recent state legislation, including Senate Bill 382, together with the city's 2-year community area plan process, does not support or realistically allow for a wholesale transit-oriented realignment of this area. Transit and land use are most successful when they reinforce one another. Sometimes if you build it, they will come is true, but it's only within zoning framework that actually allows that development. I just got back from Dallas and I visited 2 stations that have ridership under 200 per week in Irving, Texas. This is all achievable eventually, I mean, there are pathways to circumvent 382, like creating a zoning or a pedestrian overlay in that area, but that work needs to be done. And like Wyatt said, we are not planners. We're not planners. I happen to be on the planning commission, so I do have knowledge in this arena and presided over community area plans. But I think it's important that we keep that transit hat on and learn from the past while we push towards the future. So my responsibility here is to consider this. Obviously, we all have, but I'm just not supportive of the West Craighead station. I think we need to prioritize spacing, timing, and then work towards a future where it works at that station.
All right, Wyatt?
Thank you. Gosh, that was really eloquent, like. I'll see if I can go to the other end of the spectrum. I agree that I think I am not supportive of it, but it has nothing to do with whether it ought to be there or not. It has to do with where our lane is and what we should be focused on. And the thing that scared me the most, it was kind of glossed over, and not any fault, but it was a statement on the slide, the FTA new starts criteria, and we read all this stuff and the scaling. It says adding a station that does not have transit supportive land uses and low potential for ridership may negatively impact the project rating. And I'm like, well, that's a loaded word, but the reality is we're talking about spending dollars that we don't even have, right? And so we in terms of being fiduciaries and trying to do the right thing for the taxpayer dollars, that in itself makes me nervous if this somehow negatively impacts our chances of getting the entire thing funded. So thank you.
I'll go last.
A lot of my concerns have been addressed by my colleagues. I will reiterate what you said, Wyatt, that we don't have the money yet, and this is a national competition to get the FTA funds. And if we don't put the best application forward, we're not going to get anything from FTA. And so I'm very, very concerned that we put something on our application that's gonna not be something that they're looking for. In fact, it will bring our score down, is something that I think as a trustee, I can't get behind. I think that in addition to that, the town of Matthews, so I represent the town of Matthews, we would be very upset if the MPTA came in and made actions in our town that were against our policies and land use. That would be, I see that as problematic, and I want to respect the city of Charlotte coming from a different jurisdiction. I want to respect the city of Charlotte's land use policies. And it doesn't mean that if we don't do this now, that at some point in the future, when conditions change, that we can add the station later. But I think at this moment, to be fiscally responsible, I think we have to move forward without Craighead, unfortunately.
So coming from a different place, with all due respect to the planning done to this point for what the uses will be around, our duty is transportation, to get the most people to work, to get the most people to school, to get the most people back home. And there's a community out there that, yes, we go by the half mile and they will say it's percentage of the census, whatever. If you expand just a little bit more, there's a big group of people that are asking, claiming for transportation. Not just to come to town or come to North End to have a latte or whatever for entertainment, but to go to work. There are a lot of jobs up north in the rest of that line that are not fulfilled because there's no transportation. People that have restaurants, that have hotels, they can't get people because they can't get there. There's no transportation. So when we tell them, go ahead and take the other side of the blue line and go to UNCC, that's a totally different source of jobs. I think the community needs to connect with the other communities in both senses. Transportation is the means to do it. I don't look at the planning as a dismissed issue. I think it's very important. But planning years ago also said nobody's going to run the blue line, and then we changed a little bit on the zoning when it started running. And in that case, Florida wouldn't exist when somebody ran a rail through the swamp. To create what is now one of the most successful states in the country. So I think sometimes we have to be visionaries. And I don't think that $5 million, $6 million in a budget that we're getting of billions is a drop in the bucket for us to be so, and I respect the concern of being fiscally responsible. I'm first want to say how much is this consulting contract for, because we need to be responsible with the money. But I feel this is a drop in the bucket to supply, what is it, 4,700 people live around this area. They can connect in a microtransit on a bicycle or on a scooter and go to the corrective station and get a job up north. You get to a restaurant. I have employees to go with a scooter and take the blue line and fold it, and they came to work from far away. Because we have jobs in South End, but they have jobs in the whole line to the lake. They're not being fulfilled. Nobody that lives in the lake really takes the bus. They're gonna look for people that can come to work. So to me, that's the biggest point. And I'm an architect, so when things are on paper, I respect the plans, but plans also change. And change, on paper is much easier than later on when we have already the rail and then we have to change again. What costs us in South End a lot of money. So that's just my position and why I'm supporting the station at Craighead. Yeah.
So I'm trying to square a couple of things in my mind. And first of all, I want to recognize that planners probably have the toughest jobs around. I respect what planners do. In my corporate life, when I worked for a large logistics company, we moved commercial and residential property a lot, more than I care to remember. I think in my current capacity, I think about the needs of the town that I represent, but I also think about my capacity in the environmental space where constantly we're encountering injustices. And the thing I try to resolve and square in my mind is what was the involvement and the engagement of community? And when I hear statistics that are, and with all due respect, Brian, I know you do a great job. Your presentation was clear when you gave it a few months ago. It was clear today. But the statistics aren't squaring in terms of the population numbers. That's problematic because it's triggering from the standpoint of on the environmental injustice side, where statistics are what divides communities all the time. Because if you don't know the origin of the numbers, you weren't there to participate, you don't have a clear line of delineation around what was said, that's problematic for me. On the other side of it, from an economic development standpoint, I'm with Lucia because no one saw what was going to happen in the North End. Charlotte as a city, in this area in particular, are going to continue to see rocketing movement of people moving here because it's the South. And so if we don't look at, and I'm all for this, and I think the one note that I wrote on here, if future land use and development patterns conditions change, CADS can reevaluate the need for a Craighead station as part of future service expansion. Now, I come from a planning environment where FedEx bought jets based on 7 years, so we had to do 7-year long-range planning, right? And that's a whole different kettle of fish. But how do we resolve what are those conditions needed to reevaluate, and what do we do to ensure that if we don't put a Craighead station in, we know there's going to be population. If we look at how neighborhoods develop, it doesn't start with the upper echelon. It starts with people being built that are at the low and moderate income levels. And I just think transit is a key part of that philosophy, that theory of the case, that I haven't heard a lot of that in terms of what I look for in terms from the standpoint of public feedback. So I want to see a little bit more of that. I'm supportive of having a Craighead station because I think I don't have enough to say that I don't agree with it. Clayton, you were very eloquent. I agree with what you said. I've ridden transit, not here as much as I have in other cities. And so I see what transit means to areas that were once not connected. So that's where I'm just trying to resolve in my mind. I had a bunch of questions. We can get offline because I don't want to belabor it, but I'm supportive. That's where I'm landing.
Yeah, I'm going to speak in support of it as well. A couple of things that are missing, I think you guys have done a great job, but I haven't heard anybody actually address highest and best use of that land. Not what the land use plan is today, but what truly is the highest and best use of that plan, of that land. I doubt that it's a salvage yard. I'm respectfully, I doubt a lot of what's going on around there is highest and best use. And what that suggests to me is there's going to be a time before too long where somebody's going to go to the person that owns that particular piece of land and say, I'd like to buy that piece of property because I am going to sit there and put apartments or multifamily or affordable housing in there. I think we have to be focused on today. And I understand that, but we need to really be focused about what's going to happen down the road. So highest and best use, I think, really is an important consideration. I also think, and I know this isn't our CATS team standard, but the half-mile radius is, in my estimation, is obsolete. I mean, if there's anything that is remaking transit right now, it's micro. And these people that are just outside of that half mile going to a mile or a mile and a half, if they can sit there and access that station by calling micro, even better if we can sit there and actually have the fare include micro to the station and then where they're going from there. And I mean, it would be huge. And we're trying, and again, we're trying to get more people out of their automobiles and into a transit mode and the best one that's available. My last, and that sort of, I guess I addressed another way around, but that, what I was trying to do was address the distance decay idea. I think distance decay within that is just, that's just not applicable. And finally, you know, I heard earlier from some people in the community that there's a lot of people living there, but I'm kind of hearing in the presentation that there's no one living there. That's really troubling to me. It must mean, and so what it suggests to me is that maybe within that little half-mile section, maybe there's not a lot of people or anybody living in there, but boy, you don't have to walk far out beyond it and you're going to run into a whole lot of people. Now, with all that said, I'm aware of the legislation and I'm aware of what's going to happen with FTA scoring. That is a concern for me, but I just think it, and by the way, I get my last point is we put it off. It's 5 to 6 million now. We put it off a few years. It's going to be 10 to 12 million. And so making the investment now is definitely going to be way more cost effective than making the investment down the road. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. And I'll just share a few kind of thoughts. And Clayton said, and some other trustees said some of the things I wanted to share. One, as a planning professional, and I do this every day, not in just talk, but also I have an ethical obligation to consider and weigh all sides. First, the community's input. I appreciate everyone for being organized and sharing their information in a way that we all can understand what their concerns are and the best way that they believe they can be addressed. And having said that, the other side is the technical piece for me. The numbers, I see what's presented and I know the source, so I have a little bit of advantage in that. And everything that went into developing the comprehensive plan, the community area plans, the framework, the equitable growth framework, the anti-displacement overlay policy, all of that was my baby. And so I understand every piece of it in and out, where every number came from, where every number goes and what it all means. So I will say I have a bit of an advantage. What I do know is that how the comp plan defines equity and not just in word and in anecdote, but in metrics and measure and data and action and policy is that it's applying the right solution for the right place. It's not about applying something equally, something that we believe or to think may help one place because someone else has it. And so in this case, I think that is where I land. The equitable solution to provide economic mobility and actual mobility for this area lies without a station, in my opinion. And that's not just me saying that because of some other reason, but from a technical standpoint, I know because I've done it that the areas around greener jobs, that's the economic development strategy. That's not a transit station. The concerns about anti-displacement, that's not a station. We have not talked about that, and that is outside of our purview. That's a conversation with the city and the county around what that looks like. Implementing true environmental justice solutions, that's a coordination with everyone, not just a transit station. I believe that what this area needs can be achieved through separate land use and economic development solutions, very tailored to what this area needs, that a station, in my opinion, at this juncture does not provide. If something changes or the law changes where we can influence the land use decisions for that to happen, then yes, we can revisit it, no matter how expensive. We've done it before and we can do it again. But the timing has to be right. And so we are building a system. It's not one station, two station. It is a system of stations and bus routes that to connect our community to the places and things that they need to improve their everyday life. That is our piece. The other piece, we have to partner with other providers in our community and in our municipalities to help us get to that ultimate vision that connects people to opportunity, place, and other mobility options. So my vote is no today. I think conditions will change as they have. It took Camp North End almost 15, 16 years to get where it is. But since I've been here in Charlotte since 2004, the Camp North End folks have been talking to the city about their plans. So the idea that is new, that's simply not accurate. But we can debate that. So I will now entertain a vote. I think we already have the motion on the floor. So we'll move for the vote. All in favor of adding Camp North, Craighead as a station, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. All right, help me with the count.
Wow. You gotta raise your hand.
Yeah, we should raise your.
What are we doing?
What are we doing? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you are in favor. In favor. Four. Okay. All those against the motion, raise your hands. 5. All right. That's our vote.
But we still need board to.
So this is a recommendation to the executive committee, who will then vote, and then it moves to the broader board in the near future. I don't want to say the next meeting because it depends on what's on the agenda, but definitely between August and September. All right? All right. We'll move to other items on the agenda for discussion. The Better Bus Stop Improvement Update. Bruce is gonna go really fast. He may skip to the last slide. Hint, hint.
Do, Sheriff Sedman, do we want to consider deferring the item until the next meeting, or would you like us to proceed?
I'll defer. Yeah, we don't want him to rush. This is important and it's information that we asked for. So I want to make sure that we have enough discussion for it, so we can put it on the next agenda. Is that okay with the committee?
Yeah.
All right. Silver Line Value Engineering Public Engagement Recommendation. How long is that one?
That's long.
It's also a substantive, it is more time sensitive than the bus stop improvements. It's,
We need action.
it is not action for today, it's information for future action.
Okay. You want to try to go, Andy?
Yeah, let's try.
All right, let's go.
Can do that.
can get it going. Silverline. Thank you, Chair. I'm Andy Mock. I'm the Senior Project Manager for the Link Silverline project. I'm going to go through kind of a high-level view of this in the absence of time and try to hit the highlights of what we're trying to get at today. Really, the goals of today is to talk about the public and stakeholder engagement of the value engineering exercise. We've been coming to this committee in this body many, many times about this, and to talk about some preliminary recommendations and discuss our next steps. So just as a quick reminder, the goals of the value engineering exercise is to identify opportunities in the Silver Line to extend it further to the east, right? People want the Silver Line, they want us to go further east. So can we make the Silver Line less expensive and give us an opportunity to extend it further? That also improves our cost effectiveness. A lot of the themes we talked about before, improving our opportunities for competition with FTA. And also very, very important, extending the Silver Line beyond the current minimum operable segment gives us an opportunity for what's called a park and ride, which is a parking lot. Very important for us to compete for travel markets on US 74. There is not good travel market, there's not good park and ride opportunities with the current MOS. So as a reminder, what we talked about with the MPTA last month, what was when we conveyed the report that we can get to Matthews Township Parkway or CPCC, but it requires a sales tax. We can extend to Sharon Amity or Conference, which may be achievable with cost savings, a combination of cost savings, targeted new revenue sources, and additional matching federal funds. So we feel like that's more in reach. Some of the benefits of extending to Sharon Amity and Conference, really, it's like the opportunities for a park and ride at the Bowplex are very limited because the Bowplex has over 200 special events. And so they're very parking constrained, very space constrained. So we think there's a big opportunity if we can extend beyond the Bowplex to have a premium park and ride and transit-oriented development, which allows us to compete better for travel markets on US 74. Couple of notes there. Sharon Amity and Conference both give us very good opportunities for park and rides, which is very competitive for folks on 74. And also Conference especially has some really nice opportunities for some transit-oriented development. Both of those things are important for us to compete for federal funds. So as far as the engagement, this is the 5 opportunities that we went out for the public and got feedback on. We'll get into those details, save a couple steps here. This is a list of the stakeholder meetings that we went out and talked to, about 20 of them or so that we went over the last couple months. A lot of good conversation, a lot of strong public outreach, a lot of interesting comments back and forth. So we really went out, had our own custom website for this with over 700 folks joining. And then we had a virtual public meeting with over 400 attendees and watchers of the recorded version of it. The feedback, I'd say, was a way of putting it is maybe conditional support mixed. Certainly it was not all positive. There were certainly comments and concerns about certain aspects of the value engineering recommendations, but generally it was conditional. I think the big thing to take away is there was strong support for extending further east. I think that was pretty unanimous. Everybody felt we should figure out ways to extend to the east. And there was conditional support for the cost savings, for the value engineering. A lot of the concerns we heard were like, okay, if not that, how does access work? How am I going to get to my station? How is that going to work? And if there is going to be a removal of a station or a consolidation of a station, how are we going to make that comfortable for people to get to? So this is really just we had a virtual comment card, which is an open-ended question for people to say whatever they wanted to say about the value engineering recommendations. It's definitely a mixed bag of support versus opposition, a lot of neutrals, a lot of comments of like general comments, but we're seeing relatively small amount of people opposing the recommendations as a note, and a lot of people supporting, and a lot of neutrals or people who are generally acceptable or neutral about the proposals. So getting into the options and what are leading into our staff recommendations. So of the 5 recommendations, for our first one, we have one on the west side. That's the consolidation of Remount and Berry Hill. We're proposing to reject that value engineering exercise because it is unacceptable community impact. So when we started to do the analysis, it has removing one or the other really eliminates pretty large populations of people who live within a walking distance. And also the community also made very good points about what removal of either one of those stations would be. So we're proposing to reject that recommendation. Two, we're proposing to defer the Summit Avenue station. And the prime reason for that, this deferral, is that there are things changing in this area. I-77 South being deferred or set back has an impact on the station. And so we feel like there's other things that are happening. And so we want to let some time for this to progress, this conversation to progress. And then we want to start with some engagement with Norfolk Southern, who's the owner of the railroad, and really control some of that access. Do you have something, Kelly?
I was just going to clarify, you mean defer decision on that item?
Correct. We may come back to this board after more conversation with this recommendation again. But for now, for the staff recommendation, we're deferring it. But we are proposing to move forward with recommendations to accept the value engineering options for the shift of 11th Street at $60 to $67 million savings, removal of the first ward station for 45 to 50 million, and to accept the shifting of the alignment for the Bowplex for 20 to 30 million. So just as a quick reminder of what those are, the alignment shift on 11th Street really keeps the existing road network and infrastructure as it is today. Doing that enables us to have a significant cost savings. We don't have to rebuild bridges. We don't have to rebuild ramps. We don't have to rebuild a lot of the street infrastructure that's out there today. What the trade-off is, it moves the station about 75 feet to the north. So there's a little bit of a increase in cost increase in distance between the 9th Street station and the 11th Street station, but trade off with a $60 to $67 million savings. I think what we heard from the general public was generally, acceptable, not a lot of pushback on this, but the condition was that access has to be good, right? It has to be premium, it has to be conditioned, it has to be clear and covered. So we feel like that's an achievable condition, and we feel like that savings is worth it. 100%.
Absolutely.
Has to be. Has to be. The second one was removal of the first ward station. What you see here, these blobs, and this is a 10-minute walk buffer. So this is the 10 minutes of actual walk, not the half mile as the crow flies, but this is a half-mile walk of you're walking on the sidewalk, and which is different, of course, because if there's infrastructure in the way.
Yeah.
It's about the distance mainly. Normally we had this before.
Mm-hmm.
More with the savings in terms of what you found.
Yep.
But I think the convenience and what's the impact of somebody going between those two stations?
Yeah, 75 feet difference than it was before. And it's on an elevated bridge structure that's covered. So you're still getting a very, very comfortable connection. So on this one, within these walk buffers, you see the greenish, tealish one on the left side. That's the half-mile walk for the 11th Street station. The purplish, pinkish version is the walk difference for the First Ward station, and the yellowish, orangish is for the Central Avenue station. And what we're trying to convey with these walk buffers is that because these stations are kind of very close to each other, that we're serving all the same populations, and there's a lot of overlap in service. In fact, in our analysis, we're only losing somewhere around 300 people that aren't within a walk buffer. Yes, sir.
In future maps, it might make sense to include the walk shed of Gateway Station, because I feel like a lot of the teal that's up there would be within the Gateway Station 10-minute walk.
Yeah, as would Graham Street would as well. There's a lot of overlap here. Is the point? Right.
Train uptown. When I leave the office every day, I generally walk all the way to 9th Street because all the stations are so close together.
It's very a lot of overlap here. And one of the notes here is that there is a significant cost savings, and one of the distinctions between the red line and the other stations is that this station is elevated. So it's up in the air, so we have to solve for vertical circulation, elevator structures, ramps, those sort of things. And so that increases the cost beyond the other station costs we've talked about, somewhere around $45 to $50 million of savings. And including a faster travel time between the Southeast, the Beauplex, MOS, and the Coliseum ovens at Charlotte Gateway Station. And there was also comments that we heard initially about concerns about noise and station activities adjacent to an elementary school and a residential community. So that would be mitigated there. And the last one is the shifting of the alignment to the front side of Coliseum ovens. So this avoids the disruption of the reconstruction of the entire Beauplex parking lot, including a new garage. The operator of the site, the Charlotte Regional Visitors Alliance, the RVA, they operate all the special events there, concerts, plays, checkers, that sort of thing. They have very strict contract requirements for providing parking for each one. So there's definitely concerns and challenges, even meeting their parking obligations today, because there's development activity happening on this, pressuring them. By us moving to the front side, it takes a lot of pressure off them, and they can actually operate more clearly and consistently and have more certainty that they're going to be able to meet their obligations with us on the front side. So there's also a substantial savings here of $20 to $30 million. We did have some engagement with Echo Hills, which is the adjacent neighborhood. Their concern was really about pedestrian access to the station. They were supportive. It really wasn't too much of an issue. Now, there are certainly concerns and comments from folks on Monroe Road who didn't want it to be any further away from Monroe Road. That's understandable. We're still within a half-mile walk difference from Monroe Road, and we also are served Monroe Road with the 27, which is one of the better bus premium stations. So we feel like that's an acceptable trade-off. So our recommendations here are to proceed with these three value engineering options, which adds up to about $125 to $105 million of savings. Also move forward with the infrastructure design changes. Again, these are the engineering nuance, different ways to build a retaining wall, different ways to build a track. And that gives us 120 to 160 million. And then that gives us a total potential value engineering savings of 245 to 300. With that, I'm going to hand it over to David Boyer.
Thanks, David Boyer with Infra Strategies. We've been helping out with the funding options. Yeah, we go real quick. So I think you guys have seen this slide before. Right now, we've established the targets for the value engineering savings. So now we have an idea of what sort of additional revenue needs to be raised in order to support potential extensions. So right now we get to focus on that gap. And the thing to point out here is the red line and the green line there doesn't go up significantly as you move to the right. So those value engineering savings are largely the same as you move through the different extension options. So we've got our revenue targets, and they get really big for the farther out extensions. So we're going to focus mostly on Sharon Amity and Conference here. When we look at those two options, we've established a $162 million target for Sharon Amity and additional revenue, and a $524 million revenue target for Conference. And the big thing to think about here is that one of our largest assumptions is that we're going to win CIG dollars, right? We're going to be able to have federal support. So if we establish an LPA of one of these targets, do the design and move forward in the process with that, we're carrying that cost, and then we'll get federal match associated with that. So that immediately brings down the target for local revenue, which is what we need to raise. We've talked through several different funding sources a couple months back, and we put together some targets for those different sources. Now, for Sharon Amity, thinking through when we're going to collect this revenue over time, potentially not necessarily bond against this source, but bond against our revenue, raise bonds through a sales tax or et cetera. We think that with a midpoint target of naming rights of around $4.5 million a year, that actually allows us to reach that $82 million gap when the construction were to occur through a combination of pay-as-you-go funds and revenue bonds. For Conference, we'll take that naming rights one and add a couple other sources. So the county vehicle registration fee, we're able to have enabling legislation in order to access that, and then also receive funds to the state strategic transportation investments. we would be able to have enough money to close that gap for this. I think it's really important to think through that this is just looking at Silverline and Silo, but this is a way to potentially reach that and make this pencil in a way that deserves further study. Amy?
Thank you. Yep, so our proposed path forward is to accept the value engineering options and adopt a revised LPA, pursue the additional funds outlined by David, and advance the Silverline design in NEPA with Sharon Amity and Conference as additional terminus options. This would be the new LPA map, what it would look like with the modifications shown in the bubbles. No other changes as far as the terminus options at this point. So again, our proposed path forward is to develop those implementation plan based on the financial plan and continue to monitor the financial health of the Silverline and make an ultimate decision at the end of the 30% in NEPA. The path forward for the potential extension, we feel very good about moving forward with this in design, taking it to Sharon Amity and Conference, which enables the potential park and ride. We think that's a real benefit to the project. And it provides it demonstrates responsiveness to the community, and provides flexibility and also the opportunities for future clear data-driven decisions on where the terminus really ought to be. And advancing the design in NEPA on multiple options doesn't bind the MPTA to any particular outcome. And then we would then make the final decision at the completion of 30% in NEPA. Then this is the path forward from a committee decision-making perspective.
No, you all tapped out. Why has a question?
Thanks, Andy.
Real quick.
So one of the things, and I know I'm speaking for one of our fellow trustees who is not in the room, but the place, I'm supportive of all this. The thing that I'm still scratching my head over is the intersection of the Silver Line and Blue Line and making that a place. And I know we've had some discussion about that. So I'm just going to raise that as like something that I think this is financially, I think this is a good idea, but at the same time, how does this make the experience of changing? You know, and so I just think I want to understand some more about that and talk about that.
Okay, fair enough. We agree.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Jeff had a question.
Who? Oh, Jeff, then Bob, you have one too? Okay, Jeff.
I know the county deal with that. That looked like talk about the proposal to look at additional taxes. The appetite for that, I'm just wondering, what would that be in terms of per
$7 to $10. And this is one that Durham has as well. So we would not be increasing local taxes higher than anyone else in the state.
You have to be authorized. Yep.
Can you clarify that a little bit? Say to achieve this and to raise, but how much?
How many vehicle tax they made a year?
It's just an example of a revenue source that could raise enough money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing to think about there is that, you know, okay, we need about 12 and a half, 13 million a year additional. If you add those together and you know, that $30 million one time.
Right.
So it's kind of a rough order of magnitude and a potential pathway.
The distance between Sharon Amity and Conference would have been bearing on why Sharon Amity is 82 million versus 260 something million for Conference. What is driving that?
Because of the, well,
Go back to the sliding, the financial one.
there's the initial, so the V savings apply to both scenarios. And the cost of getting to Conference is twice as much as Sharon Amity, but you're not getting twice as much VE savings. You're getting this effectively about the same amount of VE savings.
The VE savings are kind of going all toward the Sharon Amity, right? Getting you there. And you need that much more. But
Yep.
You can't do that.
Yeah. I had a question. related but unrelated about, is there a trail component to this line? I know we talked about it a long time ago with the original kind of capital package that went with the LPA, but is there a like a rail trail alignment?
Yeah, there is, as part of the 30% design, there was pots of, we call them the buckets. There's like the things that are in the design bucket are things that can be reasonably implemented and designed by the project with partnership from the city or whomever.
County.
And then there's other areas where that's more of a, we call the planning bucket, where it's not a clear implementation. It's not clear that the Silver Line could deliver this. It might have to be some sort of off
Yeah.
pathway.
Yeah.
So there are, at least at this point, two different buckets, but if it's in the design bucket to be implemented by the Silver Line, that we're saying that's in partnership with a partner of some kind.
Yeah, I'm just thinking there's a lot of creeks on the north and south side of Independence and on the west side.
There's a lot of challenges to a rail trail here.
Yeah.
100%.
All right. Any other questions? All right, can I get a motion? Kelly has something to say.
I was just gonna, for conclusion on this one, so we'll bring this back for action at your next meeting. So if there's any follow-up
Yeah.
questions that you have or additional information you'd like to see to support that action, just let us know.
So August 12th.
And that we have the presentation for the Better Bus in our packet as well, though.
The Better Bus is
And
in your
also,
package.
if you have questions
Yes,
about that, once you book,
absolutely, we could address
send those
that.
as well. And they'll bring it back. All right. Reports to the committee, none. Other business? None. Our next meeting is August the 12th. Can I get a motion to adjourn? A second. All right, we're adjourned. Thank y'all.